Welcome back to Straight Facts on Friday. I'm joined by the Lawless and by Staffy. How are you both doing?
Yes, good, mate. Double duty this week for me. So,
yes. As we know, LB has been ducking since he got battered up in the the FA Cup final. He's gone literally on walkabouts. He's walking around the UK, avoiding streams. It's weak, man.
Radio silence. He's not in the group chats, not hearing anything in multiple group chats. I'm in with him and nothing. So,
yeah, tried to ask him if he's still laughing since his prediction, and no answer. Tried to tweet him, no retweet, nothing. Hope he's well though. Hope he's well.
Yeah, I hope he's well. Just not heard a single word from him. Lots to talk about today on the show. Sesko to Arsenal appearing to become closer after he reportedly has agreed to join. An update on the Ten Hag situation and his potential sacking. We're going to get the boys' opinions on, especially Staffy's, I've not spoken to in about a week, on the Maresca to Chelsea and what Chelsea's board believe in him. And we're going to be talking Kudus to Liverpool is a story that has shown its head, which I'm sure Lawless is going to have some opinions on as a West Ham fan. But reportedly, they are going to see if they can tempt him away from East London to Liverpool. But a place I wanted to start with first, actually, was Man United, Staffy, and sort of get your opinion. It's sort of been a week pretty much now since we won the FA Cup. Everybody is kind of angling for and wondering when a decision is going to be made over the future of Ten Hag. What's your gut telling you at the moment, based on all the stories that are coming out?
It's a little bit worrying. I'm not going to lie. Why am I not centered? Let me move this screen. Yeah, there we go. I'm a little bit more in the middle now. Yeah, it's a little bit worrying. Because I mean, we've all spoken before the game, the FA Cup final that we won. And I'm pretty sure that most of us, we already had our opinions set, regardless of what happens in that game on Ten Hag's future. If you were Ten Hag in, you were Ten Hag in. And if you were Ten Hag out, you were Ten Hag out. I didn't know a lot of people that were talking before that game saying, I'm going to make my opinion based on a one-off game in a domestic cup final, especially versus Man City. Because it would be a little bit illogical and unjust to do it. Because if most of us would have said we're Ten Hag out because he lost the City, people would be like, well, that's unfair because most teams lose to City anyways. So the fact that people made a U-turn because he's beaten City is a little bit weird to me because I didn't know that was the barometer. I didn't know that we were making our judgment just based on that one game. I thought we made the judgment based on what we've seen all season, what we've seen, the performances in the league, what we've seen throughout the league throughout the season, I should say, from his game management, his man management with his squad on and off the pitch, obviously the style of play, some of the humiliating defeats that we've had all season, the gaslighting that we received in post-game press conferences, when we would play bad and he says we dominated the game, when the game wouldn't be even close and it'd be like, oh, it's close margins. When he would come out and say that we're suffering from injuries, but players come out and say, oh, we can't use injuries as an excuse. So even his own players are not agreeing with him. So all that for some reason has been binned. And now the whole argument is, oh, but we won a cup. So why would you want him out? That's the thing that just sounds very weird to me because my opinion was made regardless. As I said, I wasn't going to be Ten Hag out if he lost the City. I was Ten Hag out before that. So everyone who made a U-turn, I would love to see where they were when we lost to Palace most recently, 4-0. Because I remember that day was bad. And a lot of people were talking about the votes on the United stand after the game saying, oh, I think it was like 69 or 70% people are voting Ten Hag in. But it was 60-something% that wanted Ten Hag out on that same, very same channel after we lost to Crystal Palace. So if anything, it shows you how reactionary this fan base is. But as I said, the ones that were Ten Hag in or Ten Hag out before that game and they stood on business, I have no issue with them. I know a lot of Ten Hag inners that were Ten Hag inners before the FA Cup. I have no problem with them at all. It's the reactionary ones that looked at a 90-minute game and said, you know what, now I'm Ten Hag in because we won one game today. Makes no sense to me.
On that, I mean, Neeks asked a really good question here, and we all know Neeks is genuine. You don't have to write a genuine question, Neeks, because we all know you well, mate. But he says, did many people make a U-turn because of the final, or are their voices just louder because we won? I think that's part of it. I think there is people that become... It wasn't a fashionable opinion to have, especially after the Palace game, to keep him. So people sometimes keep stum on that. I do believe emotion has played a part, though, as well, in the sense of I had to really there was part of me after listen, I'm still buzzing now when I think about winning it. It's the FA Cup. It's gargantuan. I love that we've won it. It's amazing. But there was part of me after the game, and I could feel it. I was looking at the manager and I was saying, oh, do you know what? It ain't that bad, is it? It's almost, I think people may have been in a situation with a relationship. It isn't going particularly well. You've been arguing. And then maybe you're at a family get together or a friend's barbecue. There's a few drinks that are flowing. You're having a good time. And you're like, do you know what? It's all right, you know. And then a few days go by and you're like, actually, this isn't really where I want to be. And so I do understand that reactions can play a part. Emotions can play a part. I quite like the fact that Man United haven't publicized their decision. I don't think it's going to have changed because of the cup final. They've been very forthright in those statements. I think it's about, can they get their targets in? Can they get the right person in at this stage? Because one thing I would agree with, if the 2 or 3 targets that they genuinely believe can make us better are not available, and the other alternatives they believe could take us backwards from wherever it is we are, you may be better off staying with him for a short period of time. And I think that the fact that we're not making a knee-jerk reaction is great. I saw Ben Jacobs say something yesterday on the United stand, and I'm paraphrasing, but it was, owners should listen to their fan bases at times because you want to have a connection with them. But there's also a time where you know more than the fans do because you're privy to more information, and you've sort of got to stick to your guns. There's been a lot of talk and a lot of rumors before that the Glazers and Woodward would essentially go by whatever the public opinion from Man United fans was at a particular moment in time about who they should sign or who they should get rid of. And that's not a great way to run an organization, run a sports team either. So I'm quite relaxed. I'm really, really relaxed about the direction that we're going in. I'm really happy with a lot of the little things that we're doing, from making the offices tidier and getting staff back into work as opposed from working from home, right through to the physio we're about to bring in from Arsenal. And I know there are Gooners that are going to be bitter about that and say, oh, well, you took Doc to death from us a few years ago. Yeah, the Glazers and Woodward took Doc to death. This isn't them. We're taking a physio that you guys have praised all year for keeping the vast majority of your squad fit and getting them back from injuries quickly. I'm glad to see Man United making moves like this because our medical department and our physio department have been a shambles for a number of years. So I think we're doing all the right things. The announcement will come when it comes. It doesn't need to come today because we're not bringing in a manager anymore to build the club in his image. We're building the club in our own image, which means you don't need him in today. And I like that, where before, every manager since Fergie, it's been, we need the manager so he can dictate the players he wants and how we're going to play football. But now Wilcott's doing that anyway. He's already in. So for me, the fact that there's been a delay of a week isn't an issue for me whatsoever. I love the radio silence. I love the fact that the media has no real idea of what we're doing. You know, different reports every day. That's not been like Man United for the last decade. We have been an open book that have been very easy to predict. And all these little things for me are a positive in my humble opinion. So yeah, I'm not stressed about it. I know a lot of people seem to be, we need that decision now. There's no one at Carrington. There's no one to train. So why do we need the manager today? He isn't going to be dictating the direction the club goes in. We don't need him today. So I'm pretty relaxed about it, really.
A lot of people just want clarity. And listen, I don't mind the fact that they didn't announce it because we remember what happened with Louis van Gaal. And we look back at it now that's been years ago, and we're all like, yeah, he probably didn't deserve that. You know, he didn't even, there was stories that came out that he didn't really celebrate after the game because him and his family have gotten news that he's getting sacked. So he wasn't genuinely happy after. No one deserves that. Listen, I understand that time he probably deserved to get sacked, but he just won a cup, and the guy he really couldn't celebrate winning one of the most historic cups in the sports history. So I kind of felt for that. I didn't want like at the end of the day or the next day we're getting news Ten Hag is sacked.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us, at least me, for about 24 to 48 hours, I didn't really care about Ten Hag. I just was happy that we won. I wanted to praise the players, even the ones that people quote unquote say I have agendas against. I had no agendas for about 2 days. All I did was talk about the game, talk about how brilliant the team was, how good every individual was in that game, how the tactics were fine. and rub it a little bit of salt in the wounds with some of the rivals. Bent a little bit Arsenal fans, reminding them what we had more trophies, this and that. But when that 24 to 48 hours faded away, we're back to reality, and we're back to knowing that, okay, we need clarity on our future, because I don't like the civil war. Oh, Ten Hag in, Ten Hag out, and the abuse that's going on. I don't like that. I actually want to know where we're moving, because it's so easy in silence. Once there's silence from Ineos, obviously, all these rumors come out. And yesterday, as an example, there was rumors that Claude Blanc was pleading a case for Ten Hag, whereas Sir Dave was playing the devil's advocate. And there's rumors coming out like, oh, maybe now that he's won the FA Cup, Ineos are rethinking it. And I don't like these news, because I wanted whatever the decision was to stick. Because as I said, if Ineos just looked at the season and they said he deserves to get sacked, or he deserves 1 year or an additional season, I should say, because he had injuries, this, and that, I wanted their mind to be made. So, I don't expect Ineos to be reactionary. As fans are reactionary. 100%.
When you see that news, I wouldn't worry about those news articles. I think the club has done exactly what you have said, Staffy. I think they've looked at the situation and gone, let's have a week of celebrations, whether it be social media posts, the players having parties. Let's let the good times roll. Because if he was sacked the day later, 2 days later, some people, it would have added to the party atmosphere. For others, it would have been a little bit painful. So from my point of view, we've done the right thing. And I saw that article yesterday. But the biggest sort of red flag in the article was Brailsford was playing devil's advocate. So that just sounds to me like a normal conversation from within a club. And you've got Blanc that's, and this is what you want to see happening. And this is what smart operators do in every industry in the world. You sit there and have a conversation, and you have people playing devil's advocate, and you have people saying, right, okay, well, I'm going to make some arguments as to why we should keep Ten Hag. Because whatever your thought process is, it should be challenged. Even if you're the person making the decision. Let's just say Berando, he's not meant to be working, but he is. He's making the final decision. We don't know who is, but say he is. You want Berando being challenged still. You want his opinion being challenged. Even if you're only... I do it as a host. Sometimes I'll challenge you, and I don't believe in the challenge I'm putting out there, but you want to dig a little bit deeper. You want to find out what the hell's going on.
Yeah,
exactly. And all that article yesterday was, to me, was, yeah, of course these conversations have gone on, but there was no, but for me, it's just a case of when you take a sentence out of an article, it's like, oh, we don't know what we're doing. We're being poorly run. I just disagree. I think we have some really good-minded football people in the club for the first time in a decade. And it's why I'm relaxed. And there's a few people sound like Terry. This here says, Terry, nothing is an issue to you. Well, there are things that are an issue. I've said before, we spoke about links to Chalobah today. Not a big fan. We spoke about links to certain managers like Gareth Southgate. Not a fan. I don't want him. I have a personal concern, but I'm going to let things marinate. I'm going to let things cook under the ownership and wait to see some of the fruits of their labor before I go off the end, before I have to handle, because I've got what I've wanted. And it's football decision makers running my club. So it isn't that I agree with everything that they're doing, but when it comes to sacking the manager, we have been criticized by the media, by rivals, and by Man United fans, as Staffy rightfully pointed out, for the better part of a decade for what we did to LVG. We haven't done it this time round. And I know that this comment here says people want clarity, but we've done the right thing this time, and we're still getting the criticism, which proves you can't please all the people all of the time. But yes, fans want clarity, but fans having clarity isn't as important as getting all the decisions right behind the scenes. It really shouldn't. For fans to find out today who the next season's manager is going to be, and to find out next Friday, nothing changes for us other than we're a little bit nervous. But it doesn't change Man United's season, the fans finding out a week later for clarity. So I don't, again, in this particular moment, in this scenario, we are not the most important element. I don't know how you see it, Dan, as a sort of outsider to Man United.
Yeah, it's obviously you've been linked with multiple managers, every manager under the sun, which means I think they've been looking and probing. You know, I don't think they've just been sitting there and have made their mind up, but yeah, we're keeping Ten Hag. So obviously it's up in the air a little bit. And the manager market is obviously improving to be very, very limited at the moment. And it's very tricky in terms of who to get. So it wouldn't surprise me if, they're not sort of, I wouldn't say it's reactionary because they won the cup, but looking at it and going, well, would it be the worst thing to keep Ten Hag rather than, take a risk, take a gamble on trying to get a McKenna, obviously, who's now staying at Ipswich, or even a De Zerbi is a risk when you have someone, in Ten Hag who, like was mentioned, despite all the injuries, now he's won 2 trophies in 2 seasons. Now Man United have the structure in place that the fans wanted, football people making football decisions, obviously moving towards a head coach situation. The biggest issue I have with Ten Hag has been these signings. That won't be an issue anymore. So, yeah, I look at it and I think just better the devil you know what I mean? Really and truly, because unless you can get a clear upgrade, I don't see why they shouldn't stick with him and just go, look, let's see how it pans out next season. And maybe if it don't pan out the way we want it, the following season, the manager market will be much more open and we can find that clear upgrade. But yeah, I think that the way the club are moving at the moment, like you said, it's not keeping their cards close to the chest. It's good. Fans do want to know.
Let me challenge you on that. Is Tuchel a better manager than Ten Hag?
Yeah, but Tuchel's got a better pedigree, but is Tuchel the new long-term project manager that you want? Or
no, but I'm just asking. But here's the thing, because you're saying if there's no better managers out there, I can tell you Tuchel is, I can tell you Amorim is, and even though I don't want De Zerbi, but I think De Zerbi is.
Yeah, but so Amorim's not out there though. Amorim's employed, and I think
so was Arne Slot employed before Liverpool approached him?
Yeah, but the point is that with Amorim, he had his little flirtation like with us and Liverpool, and then went and committed his future to the club because obviously he was red-faced, and I don't think he's going to leave this season.
I get you saying, but listen, Slot was employed.
Why is Amorim though? Why is Amorim better though? Why is Amorim a clear upgrade? Because he's
it's not even that. It's not even that. I'm just giving you names because you just said that if there's no one better, I just named you at least 3.
Okay,
and these are not necessarily people that I'm 100%.
Who's the 3?
I said Amorim, I said De Zerbi, and I said Tuchel.
You get Tuchel. That's all you get. That's all you get is Tuchel. Because De Zerbi has still got... De Zerbi's exciting. Yeah, De Zerbi's exciting new prospect, but he's not been tested at the highest level. Amorim, still untested.
De Zerbi, listen, because people like to talk about style of play. De Zerbi, who I'm not strong on De Zerbi, and Terry already knows that. But I'm just being fair here when I'm saying there is better options out there. If De Zerbi can go to Brighton and build out the back with Dunk and Van Hecke and Webster, and I have a manager for 2 years who's been complaining about not being to implement a style of play because Lisandro Martinez has been injured, then I have to look at the managers around me and be like, they're doing more with less. Because we wouldn't take Lewis Dunk at United. We probably wouldn't take Van Hecke at United. We probably wouldn't take Webster at United. And he still manages to play football.
De Zerbi had 1 good season at Brighton. So...
And he had injuries this year. Why are we not using that excuse for him? I feel like that excuse only works for Ten Hag.
Let me play devil's advocate here. So I agree with where Staffy's coming from in terms of that there could be better coaches out there. But it isn't just about being a better coach in terms of style of football. It's about being compatible with the direction that we're going in. And that, for me, is where Man United fans, we have to think bigger, bolder, and deeper than just who do I think is a better coach. So I think De Zerbi will make us play much better football. I quite rate him as a coach, so I like him. But if he doesn't want to work in a system where he doesn't get to pick the players, and we know as a club that they're going to butt heads over that, you don't employ him. If we want to go and get one of the, if we speak to Simeone today, we go, Simeone, like, we really want to bring you in to manage this project. And he said, yes, but I want full control over who comes in and who goes out. I want full control over the style of football. He isn't yes, he's a great manager, but he isn't right for what we're trying to grow and develop as a football club. And that's where I look at the situation and go, well, I would rather us wait for the right manager in 6 months or a year's time who wants to work with us in terms of the structure that we're going to build versus having people coming in and butting heads too early. So that's why I'm keeping a very open mind about this situation. And although there are managers on the list that I think I look at them and go, as an actual coach, I'm not sold on you. You need someone that is compatible with your club. we are moving away, and rightfully so, from this model where the manager at Man United is who we build everything off. It just hasn't worked for us for 10 years. So the bit that I find most infuriating about Man United fans are the ones who still just believe, get a top coach, sign some good players, we're going to be brilliant. I'm not saying every coach we've hired has been top class, but 2 or 3 that we've signed in the last 10 years, everybody's been excited about. Ten Hag, Jose, LVG, at the times they came in, everybody said, yes, give that to me. Moyes and Ollie, it was a little different, but we've gone for this approach 5 times where the manager is the center of what we do. We build the club around them. They pick the players they want, and they are essentially the most powerful person outside of the owners and Ed Woodward. Hasn't worked. So we are now building a structure where the club dictates the style of play, the types of players that we sign, controls the lion's share of the individual footballing departments of the club, and the head coach is going to coach the first team. He's going to get a say on the positions we fill, and he'll be given a short list of players to choose from. That for me is so important, medium to long term for the club. So what you then need is a manager that's willing to work in that structure. That's why for me, I'm staying very reserved and on who we're bringing in as manager. Because although there might be 5 other candidates that on paper look better, if they don't want to work in that structure, they're not right for us. They're actually going to be worse for us than a quote unquote worse coach who wants to work in that environment. And that for me is why Poch has fallen out so quickly at Chelsea. They weren't compatible with one another. What he wanted and what Chelsea wanted is completely different. Now, Pep Guardiola is the best manager in the world right now, no doubt. But he isn't asking for things at City that he can't get. Their working relationship is as close to perfection as you can get. And he doesn't know half the players that the club are going to sign. But he is very happy with that setup. And you need to create that environment for success to build from. We've had 5 managers running, where at least 3 of them, if not 4, between 6 to 12 months in, have fallen out with the way the club is being run. There's been a change of direction, or we have to get away from that and be on the same hymn sheet from day one. There's always going to be problems. There's always going to be mistakes, but we need to all be sailing in the same direction as steadily and as consistently as possible. And that for me is why someone here says we need to know more. How do we know if they're making the right decisions? We're not going to know if they're making the right decisions until further on down the line. You're going to have to, in my opinion, it's going to take time for us to know if it's the right decisions. I've seen Goldbridge say if they sack Ten Hag, he's going to be Ineos out. I've seen people say if De Zerbi comes in, we're not serious, I want them out. I think everybody has to slow their roll, slow down, and give this some time to manifest itself. We are not going to have answers by the end of this summer, 3 months into the season. Even maybe at the end of next season, we're not going to have answers yet. It's going to take time and patience for me.
Listen, Terry, I agree with what you're saying, by the way. And I'll tell you myself right now, even if we do keep Ten Hag, I will be angry. I will lose some patience with Ineos, but I'm not. The first thing I'm not gonna do is say Ineos out, because that's not how I personally analyze things in life. I actually do give everything a chance, even though it's not what I wanted, but I do give it a chance to see how it goes, and then be like, all right, maybe I was wrong, or be like, yeah, see, I knew this was gonna fail anyways. But at least I give it some time. The only thing that I was challenging, which I don't agree with, is that there's no managers out there that we can get that are better than Ten Hag. Because unless you're Manchester City, that logic should not be applied to you. Because Manchester City currently,
only about coaches though, because managers, you're not getting a manager, you're getting a coach.
See what you're doing again, Lawless. Here's the thing: I named some names, but then Terry was like, "Oh, but maybe this, maybe that, maybe they don't want to work with that structure."
That is leave for that reason. That's
but here
fighting for that reason.
Okay, I understand. I think De Zerbi left because of his ambition. He wants to grow with the team. He starts wants to start winning stuff, No, I get that. They disagreed about a few things, but he probably wanted that step up anyways. I get that. Listen, that is not what I am challenging, because Terry already made that point, and I have no issue with that. I am not a professional scout with professional scouting reports with hundreds and hundreds of managers that manage in Europe or in England or around the world, and I'm sitting there and I'm saying, who could probably be a good fit for what we are trying to do in this club? I am not at that level to say that. I just named a few names because as a fan, we just named the names that we know. Unless you make a deep depth, like a deep search in like analysis with managers, and you go on all these websites, the average person wouldn't know. But I'm not looking at Ineos as the average person. Ineos should be sitting there with scouting reports that they have made over the last 4 or 5 months, however long they've been here, for managers and players and staff members. That's why when they went for certain names like Omar Berando, all of us were like, who? Did anyone know Omar Berando when we hired him? No one did, unless you probably know a little bit about the City Group. The average person did not know. And then we did our research, but they know these things. That's why I'm sitting here and I'm telling you this notion that there's no better manager out there than Ten Hag. I refuse that. And I refuse that for any club unless you're Man City, because unless you have Pep Guardiola, every manager out there probably has someone that's better than him. It's just a matter of who is educated and have to go find these people. You could say there's no clear. I agree with that. Yeah, it's definitely not
obvious because it's still going to be. You could get, like I said, there could be someone in the Dutch league, right, that turns out to be better, or someone in the Portuguese league that could turn out to be better, but it's still a gamble. It's that, and that is a big decision to make. Is we've got a manager now. We'll have to pay off, right? Pay him out of his contract. Go and sign. Maybe pay another club to get a manager out of his contract. Then give him a new deal, and hope that this is the guy. When, like I said, the big change at Man United is now you have this structure. So if they're looking at it and going, well, if Ten Hag is happy to work within this structure, which is as long as if they're keeping him, you have to assume that he's agreed to work in that new structure.
Yeah.
And then see how he gets on in that, rather than them go and pay him off and then take a risk on a manager that isn't, a star name that you can't resist.
Yeah. Again, listen, I think both of you are making really good points, and I'm just trusting in what they're doing. And Berando, as you mentioned, is a prime example of why I'm trusting the new people running the club, because when it came to Berando, the media had no idea. That's what I'm thinking. The same thing here. I think these guys are keeping their cards very, very, very close to their chest when it comes to this decision making, which I like, because again, that's not been typical of it's very atypical for Man United to do that. So it's going to be interesting. On players, though, I want to throw this out, boys. Olise is linked to us. Some reports saying United are leading the race, others suggesting it's Chelsea. How excited would you be, Staffy, if Man United could bring Olise in as one of the first marquee signings?
I mean, very good player. I worry that Chelsea might get him, but 100% I want him to come to us. I'm actually shocked that he's not even going to the Euros with France, because he's better than some of the players that are being selected. I'm not gonna lie, Barcola and Kulumawani, and that's a joke that he didn't get selected. I swear he had like 10 Premier League goals and he's only played like 19 games. And I was hearing Kate yesterday saying that his injuries is a worry. I kind of disagree with that, because I looked at his injury record, and he did have a long injury last year with his hamstring. I believe he re-triggered it again after he came back. So he's missed a lot of games last season because of one injury. But before that, he didn't really have that injury record that everyone is talking about. He's not like, what's his name? Pedro Neto. Pedro Neto has like a lot of different injuries. He's actually missed a lot of games. So that's someone, like, if someone's linked to Neto, you'd be worried for that. I feel like the injury thing with Olise is more of a myth. Obviously, you'll watch out to that hamstring, so hopefully he doesn't do it again, because he's very young to have all these hamstring issues. But other than that, listen, very good player, very good on the ball. He gives us that creation of the wing that we lack, because we don't have these creative wingers that we've been talking about all season. The closest we had to that was Sancho, and obviously we know what happened there, and he's probably going to get sold in the summer anyways. But Olise would be that creative winger that we need. He's left-footed. He would absolutely replace Anthony in a heartbeat, because Anthony was not able to give us anything in these last 2 years. So Olise, listen, I'd be very happy with it. And for the price that he's been quoted at, I believe his release clause is 60 million. I'm not gonna lie, if it wasn't a release clause, he would probably be sold for more. Like, no reason why Palace couldn't ask you or ask anyone for more money. So he'd be a perfect signing for us, and I hope we do get it done. We need to get that wing, the right wing position for us fixed ASAP.
Maybe this new physio, if you are getting for Arsenal, maybe he could make a difference to his injury situation, help him work on that, right? And because that can be done. Antonio had a bad history of hamstring injuries for us, terrible. And since the past few seasons, I don't think he's had one hamstring injury. So it's just because he has him now doesn't mean that's going to be him for the rest of his career. Do you know what I mean? But like we said, Terry, I think that Man United is probably the best destination for Olise for his career, just because you're the club that needs him the most. So it just makes the most sense if you really want him and you're going to pay the money.
Yeah. And people say his injury record's a concern. I mean, he's had a couple of injuries this year. Outside of that, he's never had injuries before. So I wouldn't look at one season where he's had a couple of injuries and go, that's a major problem. You're not talking about like a Reece James where it's every season, or a Neto where it's 2 or 3 times a season, multiple injuries a season, different parts of the body. Of course, you bring him in, he gets a couple more hamstring injuries. You're then going down the road of a Reece James going, that hamstring looks like it's got a problem. But again, people that are near to him and close to him, there doesn't seem to be any kind of conversation about that. But I want him, and look, I worry about Chelsea getting him. I worry about City getting involved. But I think he could be a phenomenal signing for us on that right-hand side. I know Ahmad came in the back end of the season and started to do well, but I'm all up for the competition. You've got Olise maybe being the starter, Ahmad challenging him on that side. It's a good pairing, and the one good thing
you can play them both together, Terry. It's a myth that you can't have them both together, because a lot of people obviously Ahmad has a lot of fans, including myself, but it's a myth that they both can't play together, because Ahmad is more. If you want to compare Ahmad to a closer player who's out there in the Premier, I'm not saying same quality, because obviously this guy's been doing it for a minute before people attack me, but he's very similar to Bernardo, because Bernardo can play in the middle and he can play on the wing. Ahmad is a little bit more of a natural winger than Bernardo, but we've seen Bernardo coexist with Mahrez as an example, and Mahrez has always been the out-and-out winger, and they both coexisted in the team. You can actually have him playing in the midfield as a 10 or an advanced 8 next to Olise being obviously on the right wing. So these two players can coexist. We don't have to pick one over the other. There is a world out there where a manager could come in and play both of them together. 100%.
Agree. And horses for courses. There'll be some games where you can do that because you don't need as much defensive-minded play maybe in the middle. You probably wouldn't do that first season away at Man City, but at home against at least half the teams you play, you could definitely do that, as I say. So, yeah, look, I agree. Starting positions is often less important than the position you take up on the pitch during the game. But, yeah, I'd love Olise to come in. I think he's a tremendous talent. And that right-hand side, that kind of, I know Mount's got the number 7 shirt, but that number 7 position at Man United has been a problem for a decade now. And I'd love to see it resolved. It's a very, very important position for Man United, not just each season to try and win you things. We've also been so imbalanced because our right-hand side has been weak for a long time. Everything goes down the left. Whoever plays on the left next season, it makes it easy for them if you've got somebody dangerous and who takes up players on that right-hand side, because it gives us, as I say, it gives us more balance to our play, makes it harder to predict what we're going to. We kind of always know at Man United, we're nearly always going to work it down that left-hand side, at least sort of 50, 60% of the time. So, yeah. They said that with Sancho. Well, yeah, we did that with Sancho and it didn't work out. But again, you're not looking at the bigger picture here. Just because one player didn't work out doesn't mean somebody else will not. Otherwise, by that logic, if you're like a Liverpool fan, based on your logic, you'll never sign another striker again or get excited about another striker because you bought Darwin Núñez and he fouled, and you bought Gakpo and he fouled by the highest level standards that you've got. So we're allowed to be excited about players just because others have flopped. Then what you're taking out of the situation is that Man United are going to be operating under a completely different structure, ethos, and culture moving forward. So it isn't like the previous quote-unquote rebuilds. It's going to be a whole new world for us. So, yeah, very, very happy indeed with the link to that player. And if we get him, I'll be excited. Rivals putting it down is always a good thing in the short term. Yes, some of them, they're all going to throw a lot of shit. Some of it sticks. Some players don't work out. But seeing rivals get worried that we're getting
They all want Olise. Let's be honest. They all want Olise. Even Chelsea fans who want Cole Palmer want Olise. That tells you how good Olise is. Anyone who doesn't want Olise probably just doesn't even understand football. Or they're just hating, like you said. Olise is a fantastic player. He has a great future in Europe. He has a great future in the Premier League. It's just going to be a matter of who gets him. So if we get him, good for us. Hopefully we don't ruin him like we ruined other players. But we should be all out for it.
Absolutely. Viewers, give us your thoughts, give us your feelings. Please get the like button hit for us now, please. By the way, if you haven't done so already, get the like button smashed. Make sure you are subscribing as well. Some breaking news that's come in. We were going to be speaking about Benjamin Sesko on the show, and we still can, but some news that's come in from Damasio since we've been live is that Napoli and Chelsea... So I'm just timestamping this. He says, Napoli and Chelsea negotiations did not take off. However, Mikel Arteta and Arsenal have a strong interest in the Nigerian striker and could begin talks. So we saw the news about Sesko yesterday. Now one of the best in the business, especially out of Italy. Damasio has stated that Arsenal could look to go in and buy Victor Osimhen this year. Dan, the Sesko deal kind of had a lot of rivals and Arsenal fans 50-50 yesterday. Good player, but not the finished article yet. If this story from Damasio ends up bearing fruit and they go down the Victor Osimhen route, how good a signing could that be for Arsenal next year?
Yeah, I think it's got huge potential. I think there's always going to be an element of risk. And I know some Arsenal fans that I've spoke to have had sort of doubts about him and whether he'd be able to do it in the Prem. But you know, it's a position they need if the price is right. I don't know what's the transfer figures that they're talking about. Do you know?
You're looking at 100 to 120 million.
Oh, okay. This is the thing. You know what I mean? For that price, I would pay a bit more and get Isak if I'm Arsenal. Now, yeah, 120 million for Osimhen. Very good player. But, yeah, like, I if I'm them, I'd get more of a sure thing, spend a bit more, try and negotiate with Newcastle. I know if they can't get Isak, then yeah, their options are limited. But I don't know what their transfer budget is going to be because they've got a few other positions. I'm hearing Zinchenko could be on his way to Bayern Munich because company wants him. So depending on what they can get for Zinchenko, they could reinvest that. But I think that's a lot of money for Osimhen. People might disagree with me, but that's an expensive player, man. If I'm them, try and get Isak because I think that could be the signing that gets them over the line and helps them win the league if they can.
On Isak, like Newcastle were quoting 200 million, but do you think if they put like a 95 million, 100 million pound bid in to begin with, that could sort of tempt Isak to try and push a move away and they could get the price down from 200 million?
Yeah. I think if you're Arsenal, you have to try. You have to try. Don't be put off initially by them talking 200 mil. Negotiate, you know what I mean? Go in, do that low. Well, they did it with us. They went in with us for Rice at about 70 million paid over 5 years or something mad. And then obviously we negotiated and got to 105 million paid over like 2 years or 2.5 years or something like that. So yeah, I think if they do that, then you know maybe offer a player in there as well. Maybe Jesus plus 100 mil or Jesus plus 90 mil or whatever, just to get it over the line. That would be huge for them. So I think they need to, if they seriously want to win that league, Osimhen is a very good player, but I don't look at him and say like, yeah, that's definitely going to be a hit. He's definitely going to get him over the line like I would with an Isak. So that should be their first choice. Try that. And then obviously Chelsea might sneak in there for Osimhen. You might lose him, but yeah, that's a lot of money for him. I think 125 million for Osimhen.
I don't think Osimhen is better than Isak, if I'm being honest with you. If I could get either one of them for about the same price, I'm going for Isak. First of all, Isak has been in the Premier League, so it's Premier League proven. And we know how important that is when you want to compete for the league or win something or be a serious team. So you always want Premier League proven talent, which he has. Maybe the injury could be a little bit worried because Isak does get a little bit injured too much. But in terms of like profile of players, I think Isak fits them more. I think Isak is the better player. I think he can play in the transition. He can play in possession. His hold-up play is a little bit better than Osimhen. I've watched Osimhen. I don't rate him as high as everyone does. I feel like it's Serie A attacks, if I'm being honest with you, because he bagged in that one season they won the league. But that's been over a season ago. I watched him in AFCON. He looked horrible in AFCON. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think he had 1 goal in AFCON. That's not good enough. In that final where they needed him, his hold-up play in that final was shocking. And that still stuck with me until now because I'm looking at him and the physicality that you need in the Premier League is very important. And when I looked at the way that he played, and I'm like, bro, you just don't have it. Like for that price, I don't know where that price came from. I feel like it's mainly because of their owner. We remember that owner also pricing. Remember he priced Koulibaly about 100 million as well. When we wanted him that season, we got Maguire, and then 2 seasons later he went to Chelsea, and we all remember what happened. I feel like it's always the Napoli manager. Listen, Isak is a, in my opinion, he's a superior player to Osimhen. And if I'm Arsenal and I want to really go and win the league next season, I'd rather spend that money on Isak. Isak might cost a little bit more because of the English tax, but if I'm Arsenal and I want to be serious about winning that, I'm going for Isak, not for him.
It's an interesting one for me because I have a bit of a theory about Victor Osimhen. How old is he now? I want to say he's like mid to late 20s, right? So he's 25. He's going to turn 26 this season. So he's at a really good age. I'm intrigued to see who does try and buy him. And I say that because, do you remember William Carvalho?
Yeah.
Kevin Strootman. I know they're not strikers, but I bring them up as an example because they, every single year, when they were 20, 23, 25, 26, they were linked to Man United, to Chelsea, to Real Madrid, and nobody ever bought them. Similarly, I've had debates for years about how good Wilfried Zaha was. Now, I never disliked Wilfried Zaha. I just got annoyed at the way people spoke about him like he was one of the best in the world, when I never believed he was. Nobody bought him off Palace after he returned until he left and went Galatasaray. People do it with managers at the moment. The amount of Chelsea fans and the like that I saw saying, bring back Jose. Jose can come back and win us the title again. He's just got a job at Fenerbahce. So I'm not saying these guys are scrubs, but you have to look at who tries to buy individuals sometimes and then where they end up going. And if Osimhen doesn't get picked up this summer, you have to start looking at it and saying, well, what is it that his supporters see, his fans see, that none of the other top clubs and their scouts in Europe are seeing? And there's just something about that for me. I think he's a very good striker. I've watched him play and I like him. So I'm trying to be objective here. Subjectively speaking, I've watched him and thought he was great. Didn't have a good AFCON. I've always liked him. I like the way he plays. I like his physicality. I think he's a good finisher. But then I start to look at it and go, okay, I like him, but why is no one buying him? Why is nobody coming in with that money? It's an interesting one. You know, it becomes a bit like music. One of my favorite singers is a British guy, or British Nigerian guy. Ironically, he's Nigerian, like Osimhen, called Lamar. And Dan will remember some of his songs, things like 50-50 back in the day. He's okay. He sold a few million records. He's a good guy. He's one of my favorites. But objectively speaking, I know he's not one of the best. I know that. Subjectively, he's great. And I think sometimes with football players, you have to do that as well. And I think 25 turning 26, no one comes in for him this summer. There has to be a question as to whether, if you really rate him, maybe on this particular player, on this particular opinion, he's a good player, but he's maybe not elite, even though he did have that title-winning season where he scored 31 goals for Napoli. I sort of feel a little bit like you have to factor that in somewhat, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, it's like Staffy said earlier, you know, us as fans, we don't have all the access to the technology and the scouting departments, all of that, right? So these clubs that do have all of that, what are they seeing or not seeing in Osimhen that hasn't, you know, pushed them to make a big bid over the past couple of seasons? You know, so there has to be question marks over that. And if I just think the look of it, they're probably seeing is, the price is just too much. It's too much for what he's done, of, you know, having one really good season, showing promise. And I think that's off-putting. And I don't think any clubs are going to pay 100 and 120 million for him. I can't see it.
Listen, I think Benjamin Sesko is a really good option for Arsenal. £45 million, athletic, strong, very fast. Yes, he's raw, so he's in the finished article right now. But it depends on what else they spend their money on. If they buy experience elsewhere and add Šeško, I think they've improved their squad massively. They just buy loads of kids again, 20 years old. They may or they may not. It's hard.
But that's the issue, Terry. I'll tell you why. I like Šeško. I've watched some of his play this year. I did some research about him because I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I've watched him all season. But I watched some footage about him. I like some of the stuff that I've seen about him. He just turned 21 today, I believe. So he's very young. Here's the thing. He needs to be like a Julian Alvarez type of signing that came in hand with a Haaland. Came in with no pressure. He knew he was going to be the second guy. Obviously, that worked because Haaland was only, at the time, he was only sold for 50 million or 52, whatever it was. So it's not going to be the same as them trying to get an Isak that will cost them over 100 million. So that's much harder to do. Sesko needs to come in hand with a striker that's going to play ahead of him. To me, I look at him as like the way we signed Højlund. We've seen Højlund struggle this season because he didn't have someone to rotate with. He didn't have someone to learn off, and he didn't have someone to take that pressure of being the main number 9 in the team for him. Because how old is Højlund? 21, I swear. So he's about the same age as Sesko. And we've seen that people like me personally come out and say he's not good enough. But you can argue if he was on the bench this season and he was given less minutes, more time to learn off someone else, and he just comes on in the last 15, 20 minutes of a game or starts the odd game here and there, he would have done better. Because we've seen Højlund do that in the last couple of games of the season. He came off the bench twice and scored. I feel like that's what Sesko needs to be. I look at his talent. He does have the talent, but he's not ready to lead a line for a title-winning team, especially in the Premier League. I don't look at Sesko and I'm like, he's the guy who's going to take Arsenal to winning the Premier League next season. Because there's a lot more about his game that he needs to learn. Physically, he needs to improve because he still has like his body. He looks like a teenager still. And there's some elements of the game that needs improvement. He's a little bit slow on the ball. And when I say slow, I don't mean his pace. His reactions are a little bit slower. Because I was looking at him, I'm like, okay, he's not very decisive. He doesn't have that killer instinct as a striker where he just scores right away. He has very good elements of his game, but he needs a coach like Arteta to improve it. But while Arteta improves him in the next 3 years, you need a bagsman in this team. Because Arsenal want to win the league this season, but they don't want to just win one league. They want a striker that's ready to lead the line for at least the next 2-3 years. So they can win a double. They can win it 3 in a row, stuff like that. Or at least compete for it, you know what I'm saying? So he needs to come in hand with an experienced striker, in my opinion.
So, listen, I think that's very logical. The only thing I would challenge it with is I spoke to a few people close to Arsenal back in March, and they said if they carry on scoring goals between now and the end of the season, which they did, they would go for an up-and-coming striker and invest the additional money in more prominent players elsewhere. So I get the claim they need a bagsman, but I can also see it from the other side that they're 2 seasons running broke their goal scoring record in the Premier League. And where this season I think having an out-and-out bagsman could have helped them is in the Champions League more so than the Premier League, if that makes sense. I feel like the Premier League this year, you could always go back to the games where they didn't win and go, if they've taken a chance here, if they wouldn't have conceded this, they'd be at the top. But essentially, when teams you're missing out on winning league titles, you're winning them by a point or two, you are the best and second best team. But there's also a little bit of fortune that goes into that. If Liverpool get that penalty that they should have got against Man City, Arsenal may have had all the same results they did, and they could have become champions. We can all sort of play that game. You know, we say, "Oh, this is the game they lost it." Well, what if City didn't win this game if the decision was right or whatever? So it's really hard to play that match. I think it depends on Arsenal's. I think Sesko would be a really good signing, but it depends upon the rest of their window. So say they would have signed Sesko, and they got Olise, and they got Frankie de Jong or Bruno Guimaraes, and they strengthened, and they got a decent fullback in as well. Then I would look at them and go, okay, that's a different level team now. There's more creativity, there's more depth, there's an even better midfield. Could that team go one step further and generate more points? Possibly. I almost feel like they don't even need to go one step further in terms of performances and wins. It's just they need to maintain it, and maybe one extra game they've got to win. One extra win last season would have made them Premier League champions. So I think there's a fine line. The other argument I would throw in there is, isn't Kai Havertz that guy? Now, I'm not saying he's a bagsman, but the second half of the season when he settled and kind of got his confidence back, he was good. My feeling is he's going to be like that for the entire season this year. I think he started off slow at Arsenal because his confidence was still in his Chelsea mindset. As soon as he found himself kind of turn of the year and picked up a head of steam, there was a lot of people saying it's a 1 month wonder, then it was a 2 month wonder, and that ended up going right up until the final day of the season where he scored the winning goal in the final game of the campaign. Kai Havertz is someone who I think next year could conceivably score 18 to 25 league goals when you look at his kind of run rate from when he sort of found himself and became settled again. So maybe that's in the train of thought of
I think they'll
manager-
start Havertz in the 9 anyways.
Yeah,
Because
that's my point. Too.
Everything
It's
that we're
just-
saying is
yeah.
I was going to say, sorry to cut you off, but everything that we're talking about in terms of getting an out-and-out striker and all that, that's mainly number one, what Arsenal fans do or what Arsenal fans want. And secondly, I'm kind of looking at it more when, as you said, when you go to the Champions League and you need that game changer, like we've seen they struggle against Porto and Bayern because they didn't have that standout striker that just had a moment for them. In the league, obviously, they had a lot of goals. I swear that this is the most goals they ever scored in a league campaign. So clearly they're scoring goals there. But my stance remains the same. I think they're going to start with Havertz because a lot of the Arsenal fans last season were saying we need to get a striker. I'm like, Arteta doesn't agree with you. Arteta swears that Havertz is his guy. And it took him time to develop into that role that he wants him to do. It took him time to settle in it. And let's
Why
be honest.
Why did he play him in the midfield so many games, though?
He played him in the beginning of the season, though. It was at the beginning of the season. I feel like he tried something, didn't work, and then he moved him to striker.
He put him back there for a few games, though. He did put him back there. For
I think he can do. It's funny, mad, right? Looking at the stats, right? So just stats and his performances, I think, kind of matched it. He played predominantly attacking midfield, some striker games up until the sort of turn of the year, early February, and he scored 1, 2, 3 league-wise. We're 4 goals he scored in the league. Then when he got predominantly moved into the striker role from sort of the middle of February onwards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 goals in the last sort of 11, 12 games of the season. Plus there was assists in there as well. I've just got a feeling, just a gut feeling, that the Kai Havertz of Bayer Leverkusen has sort of refound himself. The atmosphere at Chelsea, at Arsenal is good. They're behind the manager, even though they didn't win the league or a trophy last year. I just get the feeling they're going to turn up to training in pre-season, and there's going to be a really good mood about the place. And I think Kai Havertz can grow on what he did last year. He scored 13 league goals. I don't think it's a crazy. People always say you need a 20-goal a season striker. Is it inconceivable that he scores 7 more league goals next year? Well, if he starts the season with confidence, I don't think it's inconceivable.
Yeah. I don't think it's crazy what you're saying. I understand everything you've said for your justifications are correct. However, I still think there are question marks over his consistency season to season for Havertz. I still think there's an element of risk, even though, like you said, he ended the season strong. And realistically, you think, maybe one of the reasons why now full season he can't just carry that on. But unfortunately, we haven't seen that from Havertz, in his career. You can argue, okay, Chelsea tax, still got Champions League there. So it's up to them. If Arteta really believes that and really trusts him, then go for it. But it doesn't seem like a large portion of the Arsenal fans share that trust because they're wanting, everyone I've spoke to, do you want him to be your first choice striker next season? No, we need to sign a new first choice striker. So, but he can prove me wrong.
I hear you. No, I do hear you. I just think you look at the money Kai Havertz is on, the fact that he started or played in 37 league games last year. They might go for Victor Osimhen, but even if they sign Osimhen, maybe he starts, but I still think Kai Havertz is going to start a lot of games next year. But Arsenal fans, let us know what you think, and let us know what you feel in the comments section below. This super chat here says, why can't United simultaneously compete whilst rebuilding, Terry? Well, we again, when you say compete, you've got to unpack that for me a little bit. We may be able to, but it all depends upon who you're going up against and the level of your competition. That is a key fundamental factor. We're currently competing against City, who are, in many people's eyes, the best team in the world. In some people's opinions, they're the greatest Premier League team ever. Some people believe they're the greatest English football side ever. So you have to bear that in mind. Can we go from where we were to being as good as the quote-unquote greatest team ever inside a year? You have to sometimes look at your standards and also put them into the reality of the situation that you currently find yourself in. You just have to. There are certain 100-meter sprinters who'd have had the ambition of being the best in the world. Their sponsors would have said, you need to, to keep your sponsorship money coming. You've got to try and win this, win that. Do you really think there was many sponsors turning around to the other 100-meter sprinters during Usain Bolt's time saying, if you don't beat Usain Bolt regularly, you're losing your sponsorship deal? They wouldn't have done that because it would have been set in what many would have considered to be an unachievable expectation. Even though you want to have high standards, they have to be realistic. They really do. So I think we can listen, depending on listen, I don't see any reason why next year United can't compete for trophies. I don't see any reason why we can't compete to get back into the top 4. Compete for the title year 1. I'd say that's one step too far because that's very, very difficult. But great super chat. Krugler here says, is it overly offensive to say that this dude looks like John Travolta? Because I said that and you guys said you would read out the comment. You didn't even show it at all. And we are showing the comment.
Someone said it the other day. I think it was Tuesday. Didn't someone literally just say that? And we put it up and we laughed.
We definitely spoke about it. Yeah, you have got a bit of a modern day John Travolta look about you. Not Danny Zuko John Travolta. Like is it taking Harlem 1, 2, 3 or whatever, like that John Travolta.
Yeah, the film. Yeah, he's in Paris or something, or whatever. That's
the one. Yeah. That's the one.
Yeah, but no, not overly offensive at all. I don't mind. But we did. I don't know if it was the same person, but someone definitely said it the other day, and we made a joke of it.
That's the one. Yeah, from Paris with Love. Yeah, from Paris with Love, John Travolta, or maybe Hairspray, John Travolta. I don't know.
Yeah, Saturday Night.
Joshua here says everything is tribalism at United. People going at Phelan for what he said about Ten Hag. Another reason I want him to go is for the fan base to drop their damn favoritism for once. But they won't, though. The people that are polarized and overly negative all the time, they will just continue it on. The only way they'll go away is when Man United becomes successful. They will just continue it and kick the can down the road to somebody else. So I would learn to ignore those people. If City get Rodrygo or Bruno Guimaraes, it's over for Arsenal.
It's peak. If they get Rodrygo, especially, it's finished.
That's going to be a hard one to combat. Were United easy to play against last year? Yes, but as soon as you got your defense back in with Lissandro and Rafa, you won the FA Cup. I think you can keep him a few months and take it from there.
Lie, myth again. They look at the final only. We praised Terry. You weren't here last week. Obviously, KJ was here, but Lawless, you were here. You remember the build-up to the game and how I predicted the game and why I said we probably have a chance now. It wasn't just because of Varane and Lissandro. If you remember, and let me know if you do, I said our midfield has been compact since the game we played against Arsenal. I said, since we started playing a double pivot of Mainu and Amrabat, we've been harder to break. Against Arsenal, they only scored because of a Casemiro individual mistake in the back line. And then we played Newcastle, we won. And then we played Brighton and we won. That was the only reason it gave us a chance. Obviously, having Varane and Lissandro gives you a better chance. But we didn't have Varane and Lissandro versus Arsenal and we looked good. We didn't have Varane and Lissandro versus Newcastle and we looked good. And we didn't have Varane and Lissandro versus Brighton and didn't necessarily look great in that game, but we still won that game. So why do people only to look at that game and they don't look at the midfield being changed and not allowing that many chances of us that we used to concede throughout the season? That's the one thing that gets ignored because our form in the last 4 games of the season has changed, not just that final. But the only reason people pick on the Varane Lissandro thing is because it fits in their narrative that if we had that backline throughout the season, Ten Hag would have been better. Not to mention that he benched Varane on purpose throughout the season and that you can't possibly just rely on one defender being healthy throughout the season in order to play football. So what happens if Lissandro picks up another injury next year? Should I write out the season again? Come on, bro. We can't.
Yeah, so we definitely improved with those players, but I remember getting laughed at after the Arsenal game, and I said, we tucked. It was about tucking inside forwards into the midfield out of possession and being hard to play against. And listen, I'd have much more faith in keeping Ten Hag if he'd have made those changes 3 or 4 months earlier and improved us. If he'd have addressed the issues and improved us sooner, my view would be a little bit different. Till when is the Lee Gunner show coming back? Man's been, I don't know what that emoji means, but
I think it means quiet, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe no, it doesn't look quiet. It means it looks shocked. I don't know. I mean, look, me and Lee have no plans right now to bring Lee back to straight facts. Main reason being, I'm loving the panels that we've got. Lee's doing his own thing and killing it. It's only been 5 months since we stopped those shows. One day it may come back. I don't know. But yeah, no direct plans to bring it back right now. Variety is the spice of life, is what I would say. Obviously, a lot's happened this week in the world of football when it comes to Chelsea, and we're going to move on to that in a minute. But I wanted to ask about a quick story I saw today about Liverpool, and that's that they have an interest in West Ham's Mohammed Kudus, and they may be looking to make a move for him this summer. Could you see that happening, Lawless, or do you think West Ham will push back against any attempt to sell Kudus to anybody, let alone Liverpool?
I think it would take a huge transfer fee. He's reports about his buyout clause existing that wouldn't activate until next season, which I think is around 85 million, similar to Paqueta's, which means we're going to look at it and going, okay, if we're going to sell him earlier, we want a lot more than that. Otherwise, I can't see us selling him. The deal would have to be really, really good. We've only had him one season. Paqueta is up in the air. We don't know whether he's going to be banned or not, or if he's not banned, if he's going to go off to Man City. So I strongly believe that Kudus will be at West Ham next season. Liverpool, unless they get crazy money for Salah, I can't really see him splashing big money. We haven't seen it so much in the past few seasons, apart from like Darwin Núñez or something. I don't know if I can see him really spending a load of money on one player like that. Like, it would take well over 100 mil for us to sell him earlier than his release clause. So I don't want to see him go. I love him. I think he's quality, and I think he'd be class for Liverpool. He'd be top class. It's interesting actually. Now Klopp's gone, they've shifted from Jared Bowen now to Kudus. Jared Bowen was the big player that they really wanted, and now it's Kudus. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I want to keep him though, see how he plays in this new Lopetegui system.
I suppose they've got to start thinking about it though, haven't they, Staffy? The sort of the long-term replacement of Mohamed Salah, who isn't getting any younger. Saudi are knocking on the door for him. So someone like Kudus, I mean, we saw how brilliant he's been this season for West Ham. It's not surprising to see him linked to a club like Liverpool.
Yeah, it would be a great signing for them. I think it's time to let Salah go. I think it's time for Salah to go to Saudi Arabia and collect that bag. Listen, he's done his time at Liverpool. He's won at least one trophy of each, arguably the best ever player in their club's history. Did more than Gerrard ever did. So listen, it's time for him to go collect that bag. Last season they were offered 200 million for him. They said no. They didn't win anything. I mean, they won the League Cup, but let's be honest, it didn't really affect anything for them. And Salah was injured, ironically, most of the season. So they actually were in a title challenge without Salah most of the time. There was actually a lot of fans that were saying Salah was underperforming when he came back from injury. So they're not going to get that 200 million for him that they were offered last year, but they could still get good money for Salah. And listen, Arne Slot, give him that money. Give him that money to work with Edward, what's his name? Michael Edwards and everyone else. And bro, rebuilding a team with Mohammed Kudus being one of your stars, that's great. Lawless can get that bag as well for Kudus, and him and Lopetegui can start doing some recruitments, rebuild that West Ham team. It makes everyone happy. I feel like this is the one transfer that it works out for everyone. Salah gets to go back to the Middle East where I'm telling you, because I'm from there, he's basically worshipped there. And as I said, sets his life basically with all that money that he's going to be getting paid in Saudi Arabia. Liverpool got to rebuild with Arne Slot with that money they're going to be offered, and whatever money they're going to give for Mohammed Kudus, they get to rebuild there too. Not to mention that Mohammed Kudus is a brilliant player. Brilliant. He can play in the 10 and he can play in the wing. His first touch is great. His control on the ball is great. We've seen him come out with moments of brilliance and score goals out of nowhere. More recently, that goal in the final game of the season against City. I can't tell you the last time I seen someone flick the ball like that and just do an overhead kick like that. Brilliant player. He can do a lot of the ball. So it would be a great transfer for Liverpool. I actually don't hope it happens because I don't like Liverpool, but if it does happen, it's a brilliant move for everyone in my opinion.
Right. How much do you think they're paying though? How much you think?
How much did you pay for him?
We paid about
40.
40.
I feel like he wouldn't go for anything less than 80.
Yeah, about 80 million. Do you know what's crazy though? What kind of football does Lopetegui play? What is he sort of brand?
His possession. He plays a possession-based style of football. Likes to play quick triangles, that sort of thing, and quick one-touch passing type of thing. So it would fit. He's definitely not going for 80 this season. If his buyout clause is 85 next season, no chance he's going for 80.
Yeah. That makes. I didn't know there was a buyout.
I didn't know that either. Yeah.
See, for me, I look at it this way: like from a West Ham, if you're a West Ham fan, you've got to be open. Listen, we're bringing in look. Moyes won you your first trophy in 40 odd years, first European trophy in however many years. He's a legend of your football club, but he does play a very particular brand of football, which I know not every single West Ham fan was happy with. There's a potential now to play better football. I'm intrigued to see the likes of Kudus and Bowen play football a bit more progressively, a little bit more on the front foot. And I want to see how they operate in that. I almost feel as well, I love Mohammed Kudus. I'd like him at United. If we missed out on Olise and then it was announced we're getting Kudus, I'd be happy. But I feel this is actually an opportunity, a risk, but an opportunity for rivals. And I'm looking at this from a rival perspective and someone that would buy him from West Ham. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to your club. Watch him play in a more progressive style this year and see how he does. Because when you're at Liverpool, if it was at Man United, Liverpool, whoever it may be, majority of the time you're going to have the ball, you're going to be playing more progressive football. If players are really good at the counter, it was always my issue with Jamie Vardy. It's why Jamie Vardy never looked as good for England as he did at his pomp at Leicester, because Leicester played a kind of counter-attack football where England, most of the time, teams sat behind the ball against us. So I look at it, I would like to see Mohammed Kudus playing a team that have got more of the ball, because that'll give you more of an idea whether he can adapt to the bigger sides. I think he can. I know he did well in the Eredivisie, but we've seen a lot of players struggle when they come from there. So I would just like to see, if I'm a Man United fan and you're looking at 85 million to get him, it's a lot of money. This season could be perfect to watch him under the new coach with the new style, just so that you're as close to cast iron sure as you could be, if that makes sense. And that's not me trying to put him down. I think he can do it, but I'd like to see him do it first before my team drops an almost record-breaking amount of money on him, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair, and I have every faith that he can do it because I've seen he's one of the players that loves to have the ball. He's not trying to get rid of it as soon as he gets it. It will take players on.
Yeah.
So I have every faith he can, but we just can't be letting him go. Like I said, if it's this summer, it has to be like 120, like something ridiculous, because to replace him and Paqueta in one window,
well, and Paqueta's
whole back line.
Yeah, and that's a great point because you're not getting any money for Paqueta now because that man looks cooked. He looks like he's done in football, let alone West Ham. Like he looks like he's absolutely finished. If he gets found guilty, you're looking at it could be a 40 to 50 year ban from the game. Like it's that bad supposedly. So yeah, you guys ain't getting any money for him, and you're going to have to bring in a replacement. So yeah, letting him go this year, but then maybe money. I know you've got money, everyone in the Prem's got money, but because you're not getting something for Paqueta and you maybe were expecting to sell him this summer, maybe you are going to be forced into a sale of somebody because you've got to raise funds. I'm just playing devil's advocate. Yeah,
there could be a bit. We've got to basically rebuild our entire back line almost. So yeah, that's not completely unfeasible for us to look to do that if someone comes in for him. But that would not be, I don't think it'd be an easy negotiation. I think, someone would try and come in and offer 80 and we would say no chance. Like I said, if next season we're getting a minimum of 85 next summer, if someone buys him, there's no way we're selling him for even the price of the release clause that would be next season.
Yeah, and especially if you're not in financial difficulties at this point, because the club can probably go, do you know what? We can stomach a loss on the Paqueta not leaving for money now. Viewers, let us know what you think and let us know what you feel. Staffy, what's been your view on the situation at Chelsea? I want to read you something that Chelsea again today briefed to the media. Their PR on this it has been maybe one of the strongest I've seen. Their quote, I want to quote them today. They have said that Chelsea are confident that Enzo Maresca is the perfect candidate to make them an elite force in England and Europe for the coming years. Like, what do you make of this, Staffy? His appointment at Chelsea Football Club.
They're either the smartest people on earth or the dumbest people on earth. Because, listen, we spoke about this sometime last week, I think. I was on the top 6, I think, when we spoke about this. And I defended the idea of big clubs going for upcoming managers that haven't really done anything yet in terms of winning the major trophies. I don't like this narrative that you need to win something before you go to a big club, because I gave a lot of examples of managers who became elite, but at the time they weren't elite when they got appointed at big clubs. But to come out and say that you trust that he's going, what was it again? What was the exact wording, Terry?
Exact word. Well, this was what was written by the journalist, but this is. I spoke to people that give me sport who have a press desk where they get information from the clubs, and what they have told me is Chelsea have briefed multiple media outlets with the same kind of, pretty much same wording, which is very much that Chelsea are really confident that Enzo is the perfect candidate to get them back to the top of English and European football.
That's what I'm saying. That statement is big because, listen, I appreciate the fact that they just didn't go for the obvious name. See, how we were talking earlier, Lawless, about not knowing there's not a clear candidate for United, this, and that. Chelsea have won for a candidate that's not clear and obvious, but they think, based on the research that they've done on this guy, that he's the guy to take him back to glory, which is what I'm saying. They're either going to be geniuses or they're going to be idiots. Do
you trust them there? Like, because I was thinking when you said
that is what we need to say.
The smartest guys in the world, the dumbest guys in the world. I'm thinking if I have to put my money on it, I'm thinking Bowley and Chelsea. I'm going with the dumbest guys based on their track record, you know
and that's what everyone would most likely go with. But you know how everyone, what is to say that everyone, every genius was once a madman, something like that. You're never proven to be a genius until you actually get to prove that you're a genius. And this is why we're going to have to wait and see what Chelsea do, because it is a risk. Let's just be very honest. I was with it, but it is a risk to bring in a manager that hasn't proven anything. So you have no really credentials in terms of success to fall back on, be like, well, this is what we've seen in terms of success, and that's why we're going for it. But they do have the belief. I do think he's a decent manager. I've seen the way he had Leicester play. I've seen his tactics, the way he speaks about his tactics, and obviously he's worked with Pep. So there's a lot of Pep disciples, that, as they like to call him, that have been decent in football. But to be the guy that takes him back to glory, I wouldn't bet my house on that. I'll be honest, because there is a lot of transitional managers. He could be a better manager than Poch, but you don't really need to do a lot to be better than Poch. Let's be honest. He could get these players to play better football than Poch, but it doesn't take a lot for a manager to get these players to play better football than Poch. The bar, in my opinion, is pretty low anyways. So I do think he's already going to do better than Poch. However, I don't think you can come out easily and say he's going to be the manager that leads us back to being on top of England in Europe, because there's so many things that need to go right for that to happen. And let's be honest, I thought that, what's his name, Graham Potter was a decent manager, but they've managed to make him look like a fool. I thought Poch is better than what I've seen from him, but they also managed to make him look like a fool. They also made decisions like hiring Lampard on a interim basis until they get another manager. They've made a lot of signings with players where I sat there and questioned. I'm like, really? Do you really think this player was worth that much? Do you really think he's going to be that elite in his position that you splashed that much on him? There's a few that worked out. I think Gusto is good. Caicedo obviously has been good. Some other players that you can look at and be like, good. But what if this manager is looked at the same way they looked at Mudryk? Because they looked at Mudryk and they were like, yeah, this guy's going to be one of the best swingers in the world. 2 years later, he's looking like a dud. So how do I trust that the same people that judge some of these players are not the same people that judge this manager? And that's where the worry is on. And I will be honest, that statement is putting them under a lot of pressure. And there's a lot of Chelsea fans that are in a lot of pressure as well, because people like Dunn and Ches and them, rightfully so, came out and called out Poch last season and saying it was more of Poch than the players, which I disagreed with. I felt like it should have been a shared blame between the two, because I still think a lot of these players are not good enough, even though some Chelsea fans will tell you other than that. But next season, they need to perform. They need to. Listen, I don't even want to say that they need to compete for top 4. They actually need to finish top 4, because the amount of Chelsea fans that think they should have been in top 4 if it wasn't for Poch holding them back and missing out by like 8 points. Now I'm expected for you to go and get these 8 points and actually finish top 4. Chelsea next season, I will be honest, Terry, will be a shit show. It will be an absolute shit show if they don't deliver right away. Because unfortunately for Maresca, he's coming in, and there's a lot of expectations already. And I don't know him personally to see and tell you how is he going to cope with that pressure. Chelsea next season might be a shit show again.
Yeah, it's going to be there. It's going to be very interesting, Chelsea. I think they're going to see the team I have my eyes on, because you're right. Like we said this the other day, like how sort of little patience their fan base has, and he has to hit the ground running. I don't think they're going to be wanting to get into October, even November times, and you know what I mean, they're like mid-table. He's going to have to do it, and big question marks. And I would call him more of a Pellegrini disciple than a Pep disciple. I think he actually worked more closely with Pellegrini than he did with Pep as well. So I think obviously he's got the Pep look, but again, so have I. So it doesn't make me qualified to be Chelsea.
You know what it is? There's another thing as well. The other Enzo, because they're saying that he said he can unlock Enzo. This Enzo thing, listen, we need an answer for Enzo next season. Enzo Fernandez, I'm talking about, the midfielder. Because we've seen Chelsea look better without Enzo in the end of the season. And I know this is going to rattle a lot of fans, but they have played better football without him being in the team. And a lot of one of the statements that came out after Poch got sacked is that he went to the ownership and he said he would rather sell Enzo this summer and he wants to play Conor Gallagher. And that ruffled a lot of feathers. If he doesn't unlock Enzo like he said, a lot of people will have to answer for crimes. And a lot of people like CB, that we know who's not a big fan of Enzo, will sit there and say, I told you so. And there's a lot of people like him in his camp as well. That's why I'm saying next year, Lawless is spot on. If they don't hit the ground running because of the pressure that they put on themselves, it's going to be an absolute shit show. And I'm more likely than not to put it on them not delivering right away, because I don't think this team is as good as most Chelsea fans think.
I think it's what's really interesting is I feel this is either going to be amazing, short, medium, long term, or absolutely disastrous. I feel like it's going to be one of those two things. I don't think this is going to be middle ground. The PR is too much, and all clubs do PR. My club does it. And when I say it's too much, it isn't what Chelsea are doing. It's the Kool-Aid I'm seeing being drunk. I think you can be excited about it, but remain level-headed. Some will say, Terry, you're being a hypocrite. You said you're excited about what your new ownership are trying to do. I am, but I've equally said I'm going to give it time to cook. I'm excited about what might come, but I'm not sitting here giddy going, we're back. Like Don
and it's
said,
new for you, not for them. They've got the same owners.
You're going to see all of this tomorrow morning on the squad. Watch it. Don said today that as long as I don't get injuries next year, Chelsea are going to challenge for all 4 trophies they're competing in next year with this.
No way he said that. No way he said that. No way he said. Did he really say that?
Yeah, he said as long as they don't get injuries and they buy well, which they're looking. You look at the players they're linked to; they're going to buy well. We have a good summer window, which he thinks they will, and we don't get major injuries. We are going to compete on all 4 fronts. But I believe that's because Don is drinking the PR Kool-Aid. Does that make sense? And it's about balance here. I sort of feel like they could improve next year. They could be a better football inside, but compete on all 4 fronts from where you were. I almost feel like you're almost setting yourselves up for failure before you've even started. And that's where I look at it. And I swear to you, that's what he said. You'll all see it. The squad comes out. If you're not following our squad channel, the link's in our description of this video. So go and subscribe. It's out tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. He said it today. And it was crazy to me. It was crazy that he said that. Not because they won't improve. I think they could improve this year. They're linked to some really good players. I like how Enzo plays football. But the way the club are saying he's going to fix the Enzo conundrum, he's going to get us back to the top of this, I sort of sit there and I'm like, there's a bit too much talk. Again, reflection. If we sign a new manager, say it is De Zerbi, and the last thing I want to hear our ownership say is we're here to knock down the Pep era, we're here to take back over European football. I actually want us to say fuck all. I want us to remain very level-headed and say it's a process. It's going to take time. Equally, I'm not going to drink that Kool-Aid and be like, yeah, in 5 years, if we're not winning anything, I'm going to be happy. It's about not putting too much pressure upon yourself. And I think that's what Chelsea are doing here, is you're building the pressure. And fans help build the pressure. Pundits help build the pressure. You start coming out and saying we're challenging on all 4 fronts. This man's right. He's going to unlock Enzo Fernandez. We're going to be amazing. That's where Staffy's right. If it starts going wrong, the banter comes in, the panic comes in, the fallout begins, and then it's going to be very hard for an inexperienced manager to recover. So you've got to get it so spot
And
on.
give him so much pressure already, and that's what I wouldn't want for a young upcoming manager. Because he's not young like that. He's 44, so he's still that's a decent age for a manager. But when I say upcoming, it's like in his career, he's never been in these situations before. He's young within like.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's like his best experience is taking a Leicester team to the Premier League, which is pretty decent. But he's young in terms of his career with dealing with the situations. And that's the last thing I would want to put on my manager. I don't want my manager coming in and right away I'm given expectations to deliver. Not because I don't hold the standards. I've been accused of being standards FC, and I do talk about standards, so I won't be a hypocrite. But I'm also very aware of where I am. Self-awareness is very important. And I feel like, unfortunately, if Don said that, Don, your self-awareness, I'm sorry, bro, I got to question it. Because football is not black and white like that. You can't just say because Poch fucked up against Burnley and fucked up against Sheffield, that would have been additional points for us to finish the top 4. No, because you could equally look at some games where Poch managed a good game and Nico Jackson wasn't finishing his dinner and you were having the most big chances missed in the league. You can look at that and be like, you know what? It with better players, we could have been a top 4. And this is why what Terry's saying is spot on. You guys, I believe most of you guys who are speaking like that will set up this manager for failure. The last thing I would be doing if I'm a Chelsea fan right now is saying that Maresca is 100% going to get us to compete. He's 100% going to get us in top 4. He's 100% going to get us to the Europa League. I think he'll make you better, but it's just how better can you get? And I don't think you'll get that much better, at least in the first year. I'm willing to concede if that happens, but the likelihood of him right away getting you a guaranteed top 4, competing for all trophies, winning you the Europa League, I wouldn't, as I said, I wouldn't bet my house on it.
Yeah, and standards, I sort of said this to Don, you'll all see on the show tomorrow. Big up Don, big up Don, big up Don. Why he says here, why are you guys acting like top 4 is a title challenge? Top 4 and challenge for all trophies with the quality we have, plus we'll add in the summer, hopefully is more than reasonable.
The Prem is a trophy, Don. So if you're challenging for all trophies, surely it's a title challenge.
I think he's saying to get top 4 and challenge for all the other trophies.
Oh, conference, league cup.
Oh yeah, conference. I forgot they're not in Europa League. I said Europa League.
They're in the conference.
Yeah, you better win that conference.
I just sort of, again, I think it's, look, if Don thinks that, Don believes it and is absolutely entitled to his opinion. I just think there is a little bit too much faith in how good this squad is now.
Blind faith.
Oh, I can't wait.
A little. It's going to be interesting to see sort of the direction it goes in. But if you are like Don, though, and I did say this to him on the show, if you are behind Maresca, cool, but you've got to be behind what he is. So I don't think you can be behind him and have a 3-strike rule, and then by Christmas he's made those 3 mistakes, and he says he's got to go. He's going to make mistakes. He's a fledgling manager. Doesn't matter that he worked for Pep. Doesn't matter that he was in the Championship. He is going to make mistakes because he's 1 year in, 2 years, if you count a bit of Palmer, into being a manager or a head coach of a big football club. And it's the first time he's managed a giant football club. He is going to make mistakes. Chelsea fans to help him
achieve those standards he's set for. If he doesn't get top 4 on challenge for all the other trophies, what if now you've said that that's what he's going to do? If he doesn't, and then is it Maresca out? That's what I want to know, because you're putting this big expectation on him for his first season. Has he got to meet them? Are you going to accept a season of finishing 7th? You know what I mean? And build on it?
This is what's going to happen, Lawless, and this is my prediction. All the ones that were Poch are now going to be like, see, we told you so. It's not Poch. It wasn't Poch's issue. And now they're going to go Maresca out to be in spite of people like Don and Ches who wanted Poch out. Yes. That's the last thing you should want in your fan base. Terry, we've suffered that for years. Remember, we'd always talk about people who like Martial hated Rashford. People who liked Rashford hated Martial. They never coexisted. That's going to be the same thing with the manager.
And that's why I keep saying to Chelsea fans, I'm not trying to like shit on your club. I'm seeing parallels of what happened at my football club. And it's people, a lot of people now in the football discourse, it's not about your club being better. It's about them being right. They want to be right more so than their club improve. And they're going to be people that are going to be gunning for it not to go well. And I remember when Jose got sacked, and I put out a tweet and said about a month into Ollie, and I'd said, the Jose in, Jose out era is not over. I got attacked for it. When Ollie was sacked and Ralph came in, I tweeted the Ollie in, Ollie out campaign isn't over. It just moves on to the next manager. And for me, it's very much a case of, I think Chelsea could improve. I think there's things for them to be excited about. But I think Chelsea fans have got to try and control the narrative a bit better. I think they have to remain a bit more resolute together. And both sides have got to stop setting ridiculously high expectations for one another and just let it play out a little bit. And I know you'll get Standard FC that will say, no, you've got to have the highest standards every minute of every single day. You can have those standards, but you have to understand you've got a young squad and now a young manager, and you're not going to be able to be Real Madrid next season. You are not going to be peak Real Madrid next year. So to have those standards for next year is fucking stupid.
But this is the thing. It's I can understand being hopeful, but to talk with the certainty, like Don is, right? To talk with that certainty of we're going to do this when you've got a new manager who's young, who's untested. I understand Don says, I've done my research. You do all the research you want, but you got to tell me you have some apprehension, some uncertainty. You can't have your chest out this much and be this certain over a manager like Maresca coming in. Yes, like you said, Don, obviously, if we had injuries last season, if we had all our players fit and we got good results against the top 6 teams and we struggled against the lower teams, so we can just beat them next season, everything would be hunky-dory. No, this is a new situation for Chelsea. There's uncertainty, so surely you must be uncertain. I don't know. I just don't see where the chest is coming from.
Yeah, there's where I agree with you. It's, I don't know. You guys ever watched Lethal Weapon?
Yeah.
I always remember there was a case they were working on, great movies. And there was a case they were working on in one of the movies, and it was solved really quickly. And they both sat there one evening. They were outside Danny Glover's house, Murtaugh's house, and it's just too neat. It's just too easy. It's just too neat. We've concluded this case too quickly, too neat, too easy. That's how I feel a little bit about it. Doesn't mean you're not going to get better. I'm actually not writing the guy off. There's too many Chelsea fans that are like, yeah, we're fixed. And I just think, how do you know? How do you know you're already fixed? It's a bit premature, is what I would say.
And that's been my argument all season, Terry, that even though Poch has been underperforming, getting rid of Poch will be the first step. There's so many steps to follow. And the fact that just they think it's like this, it's magic. We got rid of him. We got a better manager. It's over. I have bad news for you. It will be a very similar season if you remain with some of the same players. You 100% still need to go into the summer, address some issues that you have in your teams, get some of these signings, and then you have to be patient and wait for the manager to implement his style of play with these players that already exist, plus the new players that need time to adapt with the club. I'm sorry, Don, you're not competing for all these trophies like you said.
He will then say, but we did it this year. They got to a semi-final, they got to a final. What would your rebuttal to that be?
Look at our season. We competed for the trophy last season. You remember, Terry. I told you what? I told you I don't think we'll improve this season. Because everyone thought it was this easy to say, well, we got Mount. Mount is better than Eriksen at this age. We signed, who else did we sign in the summer? We signed Mount and we got Onana, but Onana passes better than De Gea. So we'll automatically build better from the back and we'll have more possession. So they start doing the math and they're like, yeah, they will compete for the league. I'm like, it's really not that easy to implement all these first teamers into a new team and try to implement a style of play and praying for everything else to be okay around it, aka injuries and suspensions and personal issues and all that. The likelihood of all that happening at the same time is very, very low. And progression is not linear like that. Like if you ever look at Terry, obviously you worked at banking and you understand finances. Sometimes when you look at a stock of anything, if you look at the bigger picture, it will show like a line that's like this. But if you deep down and you look at yearly and monthly, and you'll see that the line goes up and goes down, goes up and goes down. And this could be a season that you go down, but eventually go up. Or this season could have been the season you went down to go up.
It doesn't just
go linear like that.
Yeah. There's always peaks and troughs like that. This here says, Terry, no problem about the league gunner thing. Did you speak on Paqueta? We spoke about him on other shows and a little bit today. It's a crazy situation. Anthony here says, Havertz will be Arsenal's number 1 next season. Sesko, it's not Cisco, it's Sesko, will be the number 2. Yeah, what a great song that was. And learn his trade. Arsenal will focus on midfield and left back and Saka cover. Thank you, Anthony. Lawless, would you say Kudus is the closest player to replace Salah playing style wise?
Yeah, I don't think he's a million. It's not a carbon copy like for like, but it's not a million miles away. It's not like Bowen for Salah would be a much bigger departure as much as Bowen's quality. I think Salah, yeah, I think Kudus is closer. He can do that role. It's not going to have to change the whole system.
I disagree. Kudus and Salah, they couldn't be far apart. I feel like Bowen is more of a Salah type of player. Kudus is more of like asking for the ball to feet, a little bit more creative, doesn't really like to run in behind a lot, not necessarily a dominant athlete like Salah is with his pace and all that. And he's not as direct as Salah is. Salah's game has always been him being very direct, get the ball and go to goal, whereas Kudus likes to drop deep, make a few passes, be a little bit more creative. I think stylistically, Bowen is way more similar than
Salah's good. Salah's good on the ball though. Salah's got good.
Not as good as Kudus. Not as good as Kudus. Kudus on the ball is a lot better than Salah. He won't score at Salah's rate. I'll never claim that. What made Salah elite was his scoring rate. He scores at a ridiculous rate. That's why he gets about 30 goals a season every year. But Kudus, he does a lot more on the ball than him, and that's why Kudus is more of a 10 anyways. The guy called himself the Black Neymar or the African Neymar or something like that. Like that alone just tells you what he thinks about himself as a player. Neymar and Salah are not clear at all.
Yeah,
I mean,
but I think right wing has been his main position for his a large part of his career. Kudus, although he can play anywhere along. He's played left wing. He's played 10. He's
more like a Palmer. Palmer plays on the wing, but he likes to drive into the middle of the park. That's how I see Kudus. That's not how Salah plays.
Yeah, but Bowen does that. Bowen plays on the right, but he cuts inside and cuts the middle. He's not like he doesn't just bomb down the wing.
This year says lots of Arsenal fans want a left-sided central midfielder to unlock Martinelli. Yeah, I think they're going to look at that role this year. This is from Matt. How you doing, Matt? He says, question for the panel. Is there more pressure on Arteta to deliver a trophy or Chelsea having to deliver top 4?
I think Arteta delivering a trophy has to be like now this season, the investment, the expectations. Is any of us really expecting Chelsea to get top 4? New manager coming in now. If they don't, I don't think it's like, you got to sack the manager. Major question marks will be on Arteta's head if they don't win side next season.
Yeah,
I agree.
I agree.
It shouldn't be a negotiable, in my opinion. I will actually go one step further and say if Arteta doesn't win the league this year, 100% should get sacked. No more context for him. No more. There's no more. Oh, why didn't he win? Was it only 1 point? Was it goal difference? Was it inexperience? There's no excuses. Yeah. If he does not win the league or the Champions League, he should get sacked.
North London Forever here says, Lawless, if I win the lottery, how much would it cost to convert you to be a gunner? I agree with you, mate, on player plus cash for Isak or Eucharist.
Whatever the price is to buy Arsenal, that's the figure. It's for me to buy Arsenal.
But do you know what, though, right?
Bro thinks he scores. Stop. Don't steal that scores quote. That's what he said to Inter Milan.
Really?
If I offered you, this is the thing, though, right? If I offered you now, Lawless, like £5 million, but the rest of your life, you can't watch any West Ham games. You've got to go to every Arsenal game. You're slipping away from public life. You're putting on that Arsenal shirt, and you and the missus are taking that $5 million to the bank, bruv. You know it.
I can't say that. I can't say that publicly.
Yeah, it's like one of those things. So if I offered you £1 million, would you punch that old man or old lady in the face? Everyone publicly says no, but privately you're like, yeah, but I can give her a couple of quid afterwards. It'll be all right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. You reason it in your head. Yeah.
You're like, well, you know what? £1 million, it's a lot of money. I'm hoping Borussia Dortmund win the Champions League because if Madrid win it, the Ballon d'Or is going to Bellingham, which will prove football is finished. I don't think it proves football's finished, personally. I hope Dortmund win it, though, for Marco Reus and for the two Man United players stroke ex-players on the team in Sancho and Sabitzer. So I do hope they win.
Hey, he's not an ex-player. Yeah, we don't know.
No, I said ex and current player. Like there's two. Yeah. I'd like them to win for that reason. But I wouldn't mind seeing Bellingham be the best player on the pitch on the night and score a couple of goals and win a Champions League either. I would prefer Dortmund for the story. How do you see it going, Staffy? Who do you think is going to pick up the W?
I mean, anyone who goes against Madrid is probably a crazy guy. Madrid are 100% the favorites. They do have the better squad. They have the heritage. They have everything. Everything, whatever it is, you name it, it's on Madrid's side. However, I mean, Dortmund have been a bit of an underdog throughout the whole Champions League campaign. And to be fair, they do turn up to the Champions League this season. They haven't been as good in the league, but they've been turning up in the Champions League. They played Atletico, and I'm not gonna lie, we all thought Atletico would beat them, and they got past them, and they got past, who did they get past the last stage? What's the name? PSG. So these are already some matchups that we didn't think they would get through. Their defense has been very, very good. I mean, Hummels and Schlotterbeck, they've been amazing. They've actually been amazing this campaign. And listen, Sancho just turns up the Champions League nights and wants to complete all these dribbles. You know, they got what's the striker's name? I always mess up his name. The German guy. I can't remember his name.
Young guy, fast guy.
The tall guy, the striker. I forgot his name. Not the Yemi. The Yemi's the winger. I can't remember the.
I know who you mean.
Someone in the chat.
Well. He scored the goal in the first leg. The brilliant goal. Yeah.
There you go.
That's the one. Yeah.
He's been chipping up with big goals. And listen, they've been just turning up for the Champions League. And I feel like the fact that they're underdogs will take the pressure off them, and that's probably good for them because they've been the underdogs the whole time. You know, Madrid have the expectations, and they always live up to the expectations. And I think they won their last 9 European Cup finals.
The last one they lost was against Sir Alex Ferguson's Aberdeen in 1983. The last Champions League / European Cup final, the biggest one they lost, was in 81 against Liverpool. So it's been.
Most of us weren't even born.
It's been. I weren't, but it's been over 40 years since they lost any type of European final. I think they've lost a Super Cup final, but other than that,
but
that's not a tournament. It's a one-off game. So
not a final. Yeah. In terms of
that's why I'm backing Dortmund though. Like that record's got to end. Will end at some point. They won't win every final forever. At some point, it's got to end. And yeah, I hope Dortmund do it. I really do.
For the story. Because listen, I want Sancho to get his Champions League. I feel like this guy's gotten a lot of abuse. You suck. I think there was a report that came out today saying that he's still mentally hasn't recovered from the racism that he received from that Euro final in 2020 or 2021, whenever it was. And listen, I would love to see it for him. Real Madrid have the heritage, but Igal said it perfectly as in the top 6. We should all want Madrid to lose because we're tired of Madrid winning it all the time. Everyone loves an underdog story, and I would love nothing more than Royce and Hummels and obviously Sancho, for my own purposes, to all get a Champions League trophy. I really hope they do.
I hear you on that. I hear you. Who are you going with, Dan? Who do you think is going to do it?
Yeah. Basically, I can't add much more than Staffy. You can't bet against Real Madrid, but I want Dortmund. And yeah, I feel like they could be enough.
I forgot to say that Courtois is back in the sticks.
Yeah. It's you got to go with the team that's won it 14 times to win it. I hope I'm wrong, but come on, Dortmund.
Chelsea fan says Terry wants Sancho to win so he can feel better about United season. It's not that, but there is a selfish element to it. If Dortmund win it and Sancho's integral to it and he's maybe man of the match on the night, he isn't going to stay, but we get more money for him, which means my team can potentially improve more. So listen, there is a selfish element to it as well. So yeah, I'm not going to lie. I mean, all the Man United fans who want Sancho to flop, I understand if he'd already been sold. But before he's been sold, there's no logic in wanting him to flop, because if he flops, we're stuck with an asset we can't sell. So, yeah, Man United fans are strange with that at times.
If we're going to sell him anyways to Dortmund, I'd rather them win so they could get paid and they could pay us good money for him. So we can go get Olise. I feel like either way they're going to get paid, because they'll make money off Bellingham if he wins it. And they'll make more money if
they're making money no matter what happens.
Dortmund are the winners at the end of the day.
Yes. Look, I want to thank every single person who has tuned in today. We're back tomorrow with more content for you, including live match reaction to the Champions League final. Please hit the like button before you go and subscribe. Dan, Staffy, always a pleasure, gentlemen, to sit and talk football with each and every single one of you. So there's one thing I've just got to check for a moment here. Sorry, peeps, because I didn't do this prior. Hang on. I don't know if it is happening. Sorry, waiting for it to load. You know, like when you need your computer to load, but it hasn't yet. It gets on my absolute nerves.
Right when you need it. Right.
Yeah, no, it's not been set up. It's cool. But yeah, listen, I want to thank everyone who's tuned in. Until next time, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you all again soon. Peace.